My name is Dr. Patrick Yassini, and probably the best way to describe what I do is integrative functional medicine. Integrative because although I'm a trained medical doctor, I integrate other modalities of therapy, and functional because we focus on a person's function and not necessarily the disease process. So when you think of quality of life and function, it comes down to like three things. In my opinion, it has to do with preserving the mobility of our bodies, preserving our ability to see, our vision, in interacting with our environment, and third, preserving our ability to think, or our cognitive abilities. So from the perspective of the brain, we would consider it just a collection of cells. Each nerve cell has a specific function, sort of like a little factory. It has to do its job. In order to do its job, it has to have the perfect environment to do it. It has to have all its supplies in order to create the proteins it needs to do. It has to have the right environment for it to conduct signals. And so when you think of the brain, really it's just a network of neurons that connect to one another. And brain function, or memory, is really just circuits of neurons. In order to improve memory function, we would improve the ability of these circuits to fire together. Not only do we need to create an environment within each cell so that they have all the machinery they need in order to fire effectively, but we need to optimize their connections with other neurons as well. So what does that? Well, experience does that. As we experience life and one neuron fires, another neuron fires, your brain has this ability to recognize that and create more connections between those specific groups of neurons. And the more we practice, the more we do something over and over again, the tighter those connections are, and the better we have the ability to remember or to reproduce that particular function. So the first approach is to make sure we're healthy on the cellular level. We can look at micronutrients, and we can look at hormones, and we can balance things on the holistic level to make sure that the cells of the body have everything they need in order to function. The second thing is to create experiences in which those groups of neurons that we need to fire together, those group of neurons that form the circuits that we need to recall on an everyday basis, are actually honed or exercised together so that they optimize their connections. So one way to do that is just repeat an activity over and over again. We may have had experiences in trying to remember things by saying them to ourselves over and over again, or swinging a racket, or doing an exercise, and we do it over and over again. We get better at it. Those are examples of how nerves can go together and fire together and create circuits that really are tight-knit. One of the other ways we can accelerate that is through a process called neurofeedback, in which neurons that actually fire together, they get an immediate signal from a feedback device, and because of that, they get honed effectively, sort of like a super workout for your brain. And I've seen neurofeedback do tremendous things in improving people's memory and function.
Neurooptimal neurofeedback is a little different from other systems on the market. Neurofeedback uses the delicate brainwave activity to train your brain, so it gives feedback to the brain about imbalances, or it gives feedback to the brain about dysregulated brainwave activity. Neurooptimal uses 16 different brainwaves and brainwave combinations, and it samples those 16 different brainwaves and brainwave combinations 256 times a second and gives feedback at the same rate. That's incredibly fast. Neurooptimal also does not use a reward component. It uses an inhibit-only approach. So we're inhibiting the highest peaks and the lowest valleys of the brainwave.
My first experience with neurofeedback was here at my office. I jumped into 2 sessions a week and noticed the results right away. I was being treated for a little bit of emotional disturbance and a little bit of sleep disturbance. Within the first treatment, I right away felt relaxed, and my sleep that night was incredible. I slept 12 hours, and I felt as though I was processing so much information that was just on the back burner for so long.
Another way NeuroOptimal is different is that it's a whole brain training approach, different from other systems that use symptoms to drive the training protocols. There isn't a training protocol to NeuroOptimal. We place the sensors on 3 places on both ears, and then 1 sensor on each side of the head, and the sensors don't move. So we're training the entire right brain and the entire left brain at once. When we do that, it gives the brain a whole picture of its own activity, and the brain itself makes decisions about what it wants to balance.
I think it's important to bring neurofeedback into their circle of care because, as mentioned before, we are prohibited from health by chemical, mental, and physical stressors. As a chiropractor, I can deal with the physical stress in your life. As a nutritionist, we're also able to deal with the chemical stress in your life. But in entering that circle, neurofeedback deals with the mental stress in your life. So by incorporating things like chiropractic and nutrition along with neurofeedback, we're able to address the 3 main stressors.
Integrating neurofeedback, I believe, helps accelerate the cognitive function for athletes and high performance sports. And the benefit of that would be that when mechanically things are falling into place, we can operate a little bit more out of a subconscious point of view, and it takes a fear factor out of the equation.
To help myself sleep at night, I've done everything from sleeping pills to meditation. I've had to black out all the windows in my room. I cover all the LED lights on all the devices. I put on headphones so that I can block out noise. Tried a whole bunch of other things, just basically like exercising, trying to wear myself out so I can sleep. Nothing seems to be effective. As far as side effects and results, I really haven't seemed to achieve the results I was hoping for. I still struggle with sleep at night. My thoughts are still racing, and basically I wouldn't say there's side effects to the other than if I take a sleeping pill, I get real groggy, and that usually lasts throughout the day. The results from neurofeedback are amazing. It's like night and day. Simply, I'm sleeping a little bit better, and my thoughts and racing thoughts are much reduced with neurofeedback.
So NeuroOptimal neurofeedback is using the brain's own intrinsic wisdom to balance itself instead of the software pushing the brain in any particular direction. Using the whole brain training approach gives the brain the opportunity to make its own decisions so that each training session is specific to that person.
I think neurofeedback is fantastic because it's improved my life in so many different ways. Well, I've been getting a very restful and full night's sleep, and every day I'm waking up with a lot of energy, whereas before I would be quite lethargic throughout the day, and that would affect my focus. And one of the other things is I constantly had negative thoughts about myself throughout the day, and now it doesn't occur as often.
I'd absolutely recommend neurofeedback for others. And I think that everybody on some level can benefit from it depending on what they have going on. I mean, I think that's the beauty of neurofeedback is that it's balancing out the brain. So we could all use a little bit of adjustment. And I think that whether you have a really severe chronic condition or something a little bit more mild, it can benefit both populations.
So when I look at holistic care for a person or holistic health, I look at the body, mind, and the spirit. And so the way that I approach it is not just from a physical standpoint, but really looking at how the person expresses themselves through all the potential that they have in their body. And so it's important to address, more than just, what the function of the body is or the function of the mind, but how it all works together in helping them to enjoy the best quality of life they can possibly enjoy.
It's effortless to get neurofeedback. You sit and relax for about 30 minutes, a little bit over 30 minutes. And it doesn't require anything of you. And I think just taking that 30 minutes, it's almost like a little meditation time, where we're so busy in our lives. How much do we really just sit and then just relax? Not too many people, unless they have a meditation practice. So I think for people that struggle with meditation or just struggle with taking time out for themselves, it's really like giving a gift to yourself, to just allow yourself to take care of yourself. And I think that in itself is beneficial, in addition to the benefits that neurofeedback provides.
I envision a day in which an acupuncturist and a chiropractor and a doctor can actually sit in the same room, speak the same language, and work for the good of a patient. Understanding they bring to the table their own specific tools, and understanding that neither one of them individually has all the tools they need in order to give the best outcome for that patient. And that's what I like to create with Integrative Health Institute.